Hey everybody, quick video. I wanted to talk about the new, not so new, GoPro 13. Come on. There it is. The not so new GoPro 13, and kind of do a quick video about what is the best action camera for hang gliding videos, in my opinion, in 2025, summer 2025. There are rumors of a new GoPro that's going to come out in September of this year, maybe. That's kind of the end of the summer, so I'm making this video about the GoPro 13, which is out right now, and it's on sale from its original price, and I think that changes the equation a little bit. Spoiler alert, obviously, I just bought a new camera, and I went with the GoPro. The other cameras that I looked at were the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, and the DJI Action 5 Pro. And I looked at those cameras hard, and really I wanted to buy one of those. I am one of those people that had problems with the older GoPros, to say the least, being unreliable, freezing up, overheating, just random, unexplainable, unsolvable problems, to the point where I got some great footage with them, and I was able to usually get them to work by taking the battery out and restarting and stuff. But I had a few flights that didn't record or stopped recording for no apparent reason. And I was super frustrated, and I basically vowed I would never buy another GoPro again. And if I ever bought another camera, I would switch brands. So fast forward to now, I kind of was hang gliding and making videos a little bit less, and I'm coming back into it now, and I wanted to see what the new cameras could do. And I'm always looking for more from my little cameras. You know, I used to fly with full-size SLR cameras and heavy wide-angle lenses, and the quality of that compared to the little tiny baby cameras is not even a comparison. But the convenience of, you know, the size and weight of the little cameras and the way you can mount them almost anywhere, and usually you don't even have to worry about counterbalancing on hang gliders, that's pretty addicting too. So they have their place, but as technology gets better, that gap has been closing, and I wanted to see what the latest and greatest was all about. So I looked at the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 and the DJI Action 5 Pro. And here was what I found. I made a quick sheet I'm going to run through. I'll share this kind of like spreadsheet that I made for myself. But the weight of the three cameras, the GoPro is 159 grams. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 is 177 grams, so it's a little bit heavier. And then the DJI Action 5 Pro is actually the lightest at 146 grams. They're all pretty close. You might as well just say that they're the same weight. In terms of size, the GoPro 13 is smaller than the Insta360, and I was really looking between the Insta360 and the GoPro, which you'll see as I run through some of these other things, why that probably is. Battery life, that's where the DJI Action 5 Pro, dude, shh. That's where the DJI Action 5 Pro really has a leg up. So if you care about battery life above all else, get the DJI Action 5 Pro, done deal. If I'm gonna fly for more than an hour, hour and a half, and I wanna make sure that the camera is recording for the landing, I'll use an external battery pack. And that's going to be the same for the GoPro or the Insta360. I went down the rabbit hole of reading lots of reviews, watching way more than I would like to admit of YouTube and reviews, and the battery life between the GoPro and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 are very similar. So if you're going to fly for more than an hour and a half and you want to make sure you get your landing, just use an external battery pack. The advantage of that is you can move some of the weight, meaning you remove the battery from the GoPro or the whatever camera you're using. But you remove the battery, you have a USB cord that goes into it, and then you can put that USB pack somewhere else on the glider, maybe up in the sail, but then that weight doesn't have to be out at the wingtip, for example, or if you mount it at the end of the keel, that weight doesn't have to be out at the end of the keel. You can run the wire up the keel and that weight can be closer to the center of gravity of the glider. It's going to affect how the glider flies a lot less, and that's pretty cool. You can actually, if you're going to mount 2 cameras, you could get 1 battery pack and power both cameras off the 1 battery pack. And yeah, that's a whole other topic of like making hang gliding videos. But battery life, if you care, get the DJI Action 5 Pro. It lasts almost twice as long as the other ones. So that's the batteries. They all have similar size batteries, and batteries are always going to be a thing for these little cameras. It's a trade-off. If they put a battery in there that lasted longer, the battery's going to be bigger and heavier, and the camera's going to be bigger and heavier. So I don't actually mind that these will last an hour and a half reliably. I mean, sometimes you'll get like a 2-hour flight on the camera battery before it dies, but I don't count on getting over 2 hours on the camera battery. I haven't flown this one with long enough flights to really test that out, but again, under an hour and a half, I think you can count on the camera battery lasting if it was fully charged, and that's going to be true for all of the cameras. A bigger difference between the cameras in the specs is the lens that's used, or the field of view. So the GoPro has these kind of digital lenses that you can go through and select. Cut to that, because I shot a little thing for that. But it can range from equivalent to a 35mm camera. It would be a 12mm lens, which is super wide, down to about a 39mm lens, which is quite a bit narrower. That's almost like a normal field of view and not a wide angle anymore. And the lens on the GoPro is an f2.5, meaning the aperture opens to an f2.5. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 is a 13mm lens, so it's actually on the very wide side, and it has a wider field of view than the GoPro slightly, even though it's 13mm versus the GoPro claims 12. But the lens is an f2.6. And then the DJI Action 5 Pro is an f2.8, so even a little bit of a slower lens, meaning less light going through. Now, the field of view, the GoPro can range from 151 degrees field of view, which is very wide, down to about a 90-degree field of view, which is not quite what my Canon is using right now with a 50mm lens, but it's a much narrower, much more normal field of view. And if you're going to use the GoPro, if you can get it out on the wingtip and use that narrower field of view, it's not going to look like it's so far out there, but it's also not going to look like you're in a fisheye lens with like in a bubble, and it doesn't distort everything nearly as much, and that's really good. It's that fisheye thing, it's a look. It got popular for a while. It was kind of a fad. Now it's like if you can make a video without that look, it stands out. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 has a little bit less customizability there, and it has 157 degrees field of view. So it's actually wider than the GoPro's widest. And I guess that's good. If you mount it somewhere on the glider, you're going to capture the widest field of view for that same distance from you if you're trying to keep yourself in the picture. On the downside, that's really wide. So if you put it out on the wing, you're going to look really small. Everything in the distance, the wider the field of view, it exaggerates distance. So something far away is going to look really small and really far away. And then something close to the camera is going to look much bigger in proportion to that. So it kind of exaggerates that distance. And it makes, if you're flying with other gliders, if you're flying with a bird or something, it makes capturing those other things harder because they look much smaller when it's a really wide field of view. So one of the tipping points for me on the GoPro was that you have these selectable digital lenses, because it's not really changing the lens, but it's using different parts of the sensor and it looks different, and you're not really losing quality while doing that somehow. But I like having that customizability of, depending on where I mount the camera, I can get different looks. The DJI Action 5 Pro has a 155 degree field of view. So it's right in there. It's also very wide. Again, I think the GoPro wins here because of the customizable field of views. And then GoPro actually has different lenses that you can buy and pop on there, which cost extra, but they have an extra wide one if you wanted, and that's almost like a 360 camera, but only in one direction, so a 180 camera. But then you can use horizon leveling features, and you can just have that like super wide angle if you wanted. Again, I don't really love that super crazy wide look, so I think that's not for me, but I love that the option is there, and you can get different looks with the same camera without buying a whole nother camera, so that's pretty cool. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 does have a LEICA lens. I don't have that camera. I opted to get the GoPro, obviously, but I don't know, does that mean like the glass is actually better, or did they just pay for the branding? I don't really know. I would hope, you know, the lenses on these cameras have gotten a lot better from little, basically toy cameras to pretty good lenses now. I mean, they have to keep the cost down for such a little thing, but they've gotten quite a bit better. And the sharpness, not just like the sensor resolution, but the actual sharpness of the lens on the new GoPro compared to my older one. My newest old one was a 9, and coming from that to the 13, it's been a big difference. And in a lot of the reviews that I watched, and you know, I obsessed over this and downloaded RAW files that people shared and looked at the different videos, I felt like the lens on the GoPro was actually more natural, and the Ace Pro 2 had more like in-software sharpening. So it looked sharper, but I didn't feel like the lens was actually better, even though it's a LEICA lens. It should be better, I think, but you know, they could be made in the same factory, who knows. But it should be better. It didn't seem like it was. It seemed like the lenses were very comparable, and then if I want my footage to be really sharp and like really edgy, I can do that in post-production. I don't want it to come out of the camera that way. And that was the other big tipping point for me, is that I felt like the GoPro footage and photos just looked more natural. I felt like the color tones were not oversaturated. The sharpening was not like overdone. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 has 2 processors, and it does a really cool job of kind of using software and hardware in the camera to spit out a file that you don't have to do anything with. The downside of that is it's already had things done to it, and it's kind of baked into that file, and it looks very saturated. Like the colors really pop, it looks really sharp, and if you're just going to film a flight, post it as is, maybe that's the way you want to go. You don't have to mess with it at all. I kind of like to mess with it. I like to shoot with multiple cameras. I like to kind of color grade, or at least color match between the cameras. And you know, here on the East Coast we have a lot of greenery, and I felt like the GoPro just captured the greens in a more natural way, especially when I was comparing all the footage between them. The DJI Action just didn't seem like it captured quite the same sharpness or the like textures in the distance. It seemed kind of like murky, and you lost some detail. I don't know if that's the file compression or the lens. I'm not sure. But the GoPro also can record in 10-bit color, and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, even though it has like an HDR mode, it records an 8-bit file. And the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit, if you're just gonna spit the videos out and post it, doesn't matter. If you're gonna play with the colors in the file, 10-bit color versus 8-bit is huge, big difference. And that was the other part for me, that the GoPro, that was probably the biggest thing. Like, I like the different lenses. I liked that the GoPro is a little bit smaller and lighter, but probably the biggest thing was 10-bit color. And coming from my GoPro 9 that didn't have that, that was something I was really excited about, to be able to kind of like push and play with that file. And I'm not really grading for different like styles and looks. I'm more trying to make it look as natural as possible, and not like an action camera, super saturated, super sharp. I want it to look more like the video out of my Canon, actually, which is very, I feel like, very natural, very realistic, not super stylized, not poppy. So the 10-bit color, and the DJI Action 5 Pro actually also does do 10-bit color. So it's kind of funny that the Insta360 doesn't offer that to compete with its competitors, but it doesn't have it. It's 8-bit color. In terms of photos, because I also like these cameras for photos, the GoPro does 27 megapixels and it can record raw photos. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2, what a long name, records 50 megapixel raw files. And then the DJI Action 5 Pro records 40 megapixel raw files. The interesting thing about this is, I mean, obviously they have different sensors in them, but the Insta360 and the DJI Action 5 have a bigger sensor than the GoPro has, but not so much bigger that matches how many megapixels more they're capturing, if that makes sense. So if you think about a camera, light goes into the camera and hits the sensor. The sensor can only pick up so much information from the light that goes into it. The GoPro has an f2.5 lens, and it's only trying to pull 27 megapixel files from the light going through the lens. For each megapixel of sensor, there's so much light hitting it, right? For 50 megapixels, there's a tiny bit of light getting to like each megapixel of that sensor, if you think about it that way. And it's amazing. It's a testament to the processors that they put in that camera that it has really good low light performance, probably the best of the three. The GoPro is terrible at low light. If you're going to use it after dark, this is not the camera for you. But generally, action cameras, these little tiny cameras, are not the cameras for you if you're going to be shooting in low light. For hang gliding, we don't fly at night. We don't care. I don't care anyway. But for 50 megapixels, I'm skeptical of how good that really is. I mean, I can take a 27 megapixel photo and I can blow it up poster size, so I don't need more pixels than that, and I'm not going to crop half of the picture out, because that has other effects to the, like, it's not just megapixels, it's like the whole lens and the resolution and stuff. So 50 megapixels is frankly useless to me. That seems like bragging rights, and it sounds great, but I don't see the usefulness in that at all. That just sounds like a bigger file with no more usability to me, and maybe more noise and grain in that file. So that's photos. I like that all three of them shoot raw. Again, I chose the GoPro. 27 megapixels is huge for such a little tiny camera, more than we need for hang gliding for sure. I can share some photos that I just took with this recently, and I was super happy with them. Video resolutions, the GoPro can record 5.3K, so it's a little bit bigger than 4K, at up to 60 frames per second. Anything more than 30 frames per second, you're recording that because you might want to slow it down later, or 60 frames per second looks a little bit smoother in motion because you have more frames per second. But film, like back old school film, used to be 24 frames per second, and that's because anything slower than that, the human eye can actually pick up that there's still frames that are like jumping in between, and if it's faster than 24, your eye doesn't really pick that up. 24 frames per second looks more cinematic because that's what old film motion pictures used to use. So 30 is faster than that. 30 frames per second is fine. If you want to shoot 60, so it's a little bit smoother, that's fine, but it looks a little bit more video-y and a little bit less like cinematography, if that makes any sense. The Insta360 can shoot 8K video at 30 frames per second. I'm not editing in 8K or posting in 8K, so that's not of interest to me, but you can take an 8K file and make it 4K, scale it down, and it should be a sharper file. And also the like digital noise that's in the background, when you take that big picture and you make it smaller, that little bit of noise also gets smaller and basically imperceptible. So there are some advantages to shooting in 8K, even if you plan to deliver in 4K. Again, for hang gliding, I don't know how many people are going to be interested in that. I would have liked if the GoPro did that, but 5.3K is plenty good for me, and I'm very happy. My GoPro 9 shot in that, and I don't need bigger. I didn't feel like that was going to tip me towards the Insta because of the other things that I wanted that the GoPro had and the Insta didn't. And the DJI Action Pro shoots in 4K. All of them can shoot 4K in up to 120 frames per second, which you can then play back at 24 or 30 frames per second and get this really buttery slow motion. And I have some clips to show you of that. Yeah, cool. In terms of stability, all three cameras have like built-in stability. It's a digital stability, so it's using a processor to take only part of the picture from the sensor, so it crops in a little bit to kind of like rule out that shake. It works really well if you're like hand holding the camera on a stick and doing action sports. This is my opinion, but for hang gliding, I hate the stability. Turn it off, please. If you watch hang gliding videos, when that stability is on, it looks like the hang glider is like rocking and moving in a way that just seems really unnatural compared to what it feels like when we're actually hang gliding. When we're hang gliding, I never feel like the glider is like moving like this. And that's probably because we're one with the glider and we're moving within the air, and maybe the entire air mass is moving. But the way the camera captures that relative motion and keeps the horizon still, I don't feel like that portrays what hang gliding really feels like to me. I think it looks like motion sickness, basically. It does not look pleasant, so I always turn it off. It also allows the shot to be a little bit wider because it crops in to do that stability. But if you love it and if that's your thing, cool. I hate it. Point blank. Not pulling any punches. Maybe that's a hot take. Let me know in the comments. In terms of mounting the camera, this was another big win for the GoPro. The GoPro, you can see right now I have it on a tripod. It has a 1/4 by 20 tripod threaded hole in the bottom of the camera now. So my old ones used to need an adapter to mount to the little like action camera prongs that then had the threaded thing to use other camera mounts, and I have a bunch of different camera mounts that use the 1/4 by 20 thing or tripods. Now that 1/4 by 20 screw is built right into the camera, and I love that. It keeps it small, light, and I never need one of those adapters or don't have one of those adapters and wish I did, because I get a whole camera mount set up and then I forgot the adapter and I can't put the GoPro on the mount that I got all set up. Not that that's ever happened. Completely hypothetical situation right there. That would never happen. It also has, I can't show you because it's on the tripod right now, but it has the action camera like prongs, and they fold up. There's little magnets that keep them up, and then they just pop down. And then you can use all of the GoPro and other action camera mounts. And again, it adds no size to this. The other cameras have like a magnetic mount that clips on the bottom, and then it has the two action camera prongs, and you can use all these different mounts, or you can get a tripod adapter thing, but it adds size and weight to the camera. And when they give you the weight of the camera or they show you the dimensions of the camera, they're not including that little adapter thing in there. And the GoPro is the only one that doesn't have that, and for that reason I felt like this was much smaller, more compact, more convenient, and I was really stoked just to have that 1/4 by 20 threaded thing. It seems so simple, but that was huge for me and how I use the camera, using different camera mounts for hang gliding. A couple other things of note. I don't have any other things of note for the GoPro. Everybody probably is familiar with GoPros at this point because they've been around for a really long time. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 has a flip screen, so instead of a screen on the front of the camera like the GoPro has, wake up GoPro. The GoPro has a screen on the front and I can see myself that I'm in frame. You can't, I can. The Insta360, the whole screen in the back folds up. That is pretty cool. That adds a little bit of size and I think maybe weight, at least size to the camera to have the whole screen flip up. I think this works fine. This works great actually. I don't have a preference. If that's important to you, the flip screen, if that's cool to you, that might help make your decision. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 seems like it is by far the best camera for low light situations. So if you're going to use it indoors or at nighttime, when you're traveling, if you're going to use this little camera for other stuff besides hang gliding, maybe that matters. The GoPro was by far the worst in low light from all the video reviews and tests and things that I found. It's just not what it's meant for. It's a little tiny camera. The Insta360 also has a mic wind guard. So if you watch some of the reviews, you'll be able to see this, but there's like the mic has a little cover that slides off and you can put a little foam thing in there and it's supposed to help with wind noise. Some of the reviews said it worked and it made a difference. Some of them didn't. In the context of hang gliding videos, I don't care. I think there should be wind noise when you're hang gliding. Some videos, some of the cameras, or maybe software afterwards, remove that wind noise. And when there's not wind noise, it's like the glider's not moving. Like, I love when there's other audio. I usually put music or something to the video, but like, you're usually flying by yourself. There's not a lot to hear. Do you need the audio from the video for hang gliding? I don't know. And if you're going to include it, there should be wind noise. It gives you a sense of the speed. And when you go faster and the wind noise gets louder, like when I do aerobatics and I watch the videos back and I can hear at the top of a loop the wind noise, and if it gets really quiet, I know I used almost all the energy I had at the top of the loop. If there's still wind noise, I know I was still moving forwards pretty quickly at the top of that loop. And I'm like, oh, I could have like pulled in a little and stretched the top of that out a little bit more. So the wind noise to me, I don't want to remove it. I want it there. And then I'm going to get rid of it anyway and put music to it probably. If you're going to use the camera for other stuff, maybe that little wind guard thing that might make a difference and might not, maybe that's cool to you, so that's worth checking out. I'm recording, besides recording on my Canon with a lavalier mic, because the onboard audio on my Canon sucks, awful. The mic's pretty good though. I'm also recording on the GoPro, and I'm going to kind of have cut back and forth, and when you're seeing the footage from the little tiny GoPro, you are going to hear the audio from the GoPro. So you'll get an idea of what the on-camera audio sounds like. One other thing of note is the DJI Action 5 Pro has 47 gigs of internal storage. For hang gliding, that's probably not going to be long enough for most flights. It still takes a memory card, but that is kind of cool because if your memory card gets full, like if you had a really long flight, you forgot to erase the card before your flight and you had an old flight on there, or again, completely hypothetical, you forgot your memory card somehow, left it in the card reader at home, you at least have some internal storage that's in there, and that can't hurt. Like you're paying for it on one hand, but you're getting a little more for your money on the other hand. So that is a feature of note. The last thing, comparing these cameras, we can't disregard price, you know? The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 may be the best camera of the three. I didn't really connect with the full feature set of that versus the GoPro, but it might be the best of the three. I would be interested to check one out, but I didn't want to check one out for $400, which is $70 more than the new GoPro right now, the not so new GoPro right now. So the GoPro 13 is $330 on GoPro's website. The Insta360 camera is $400. And then the DJI Action 5 Pro is $350. So that's also 20 bucks more than the GoPro. So the GoPro 13 is the cheapest, or least expensive, because that's not cheap, but that's the least expensive of the three. And for me, it had the features that I wanted without some of the things that I didn't want. And I think, my opinion, the GoPro 13 is still the best action camera for hang gliding. Now, reliability issues. The history when I went down the rabbit hole reading reviews, GoPro seems to have fixed this. It's probably going to be a very difficult hole to dig their way out of, because many people like myself swore they would never buy another one, and maybe they're not willing to give it another chance. I'm giving them another chance. I've been using this camera a bunch for hang gliding and for other stuff. I have not had one problem yet. One thing is, I noticed right away, they added a heat sink under the lens. So this thing under here, right there, is a heat sink. And especially when you're hang gliding and there's airflow, that's going to help a lot. So I have not had, it's been very hot here, much hotter than it usually is for New York. It's been 90s and hundreds, and it's humid and like just brutal. And I've had no overheating issues. I've had no freezing issues. It is just working the way it should work. You push the button, it turns on, it records, it keeps recording. And from everything that I read, people that, you know, it's been out a while, and I didn't find any reports of the instability and the unreliability that it used to have. So hopefully that's fixed. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I'm happy that I gave them another chance. And I get nothing from this. Many years back, I was a GoPro dealer. When GoPro first came out, I ordered a whole bunch of them because I thought this thing was going to be great for hang gliding. And I ordered, you know, a mass bulk order. I became a dealer. I reached out to them and I was like, this is great for hang gliding. I'm out in Utah. I have a school. They made me a dealer. I put a bulk order in. I waited because it was all like pre-order at that point. They finally showed up. I had pre-sold a whole bunch of them to hang glider pilots. I shipped them all out. It was awesome. I felt like I got in on the ground floor. I didn't make much money off of it, but I was pretty stoked at like the explosion of sharing hang gliding and how much more accessible it got to make hang gliding videos. And I missed that. So that's my motivation to make this video. Is people are still hang gliding, but we don't take as many pictures and videos as we used to. We don't share it. And people are kind of like, oh, hang gliding still exists? And yeah, it does. There might be less people doing it than there used to. The people doing it are generally older than they used to be, but it's still there. We're still doing it, and the cameras are better than ever. So do your part and share what we do. Also, a little bit of editing goes a long way. So try to tell a story with your videos. Don't just post an entire flight from beginning to end because it might have been really interesting for you. It's freaking boring to everybody else, including people that actually hang glide and are interested in it. So like just cut some parts in between, you know, some points of interest, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, one song's worth, whatever. But put like a little bit into making it more interesting so people actually check it out. And get yourself a new camera, because it might be time. Or you can wait till September and maybe there will be a new GoPro. The rumors on the internet I read it on the internet, so it must be true. September will be a new GoPro. Supposedly there will be a new processor in it that should give better battery life, maybe better compression for the video files, which might mean like a higher quality file for the same file size. Don't know, all rumors. But thanks for checking it out. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you appreciate this, give it a like, subscribe if you want to see the next videos. Later. For any of the cameras, if you're recording hang gliding videos, strongly recommend ND filters. An ND filter is basically a neutral density filter. It's like sunglasses for your camera. It lets less light in. If you're going to use them, go into the camera settings and make sure you set like your max ISO, which is like the sensor sensitivity. Set that very low. What that's going to do is force the camera to use a slower shutter speed for each frame of the video, and that means you're going to get motion blur. So when you're going fast, the background should be blurry. If it's too fast of a shutter speed, it just freezes everything. You don't get that like creamy blur when you go fast. You know me and my videos probably, and I want that motion blur. When you come into land and you're in ground effect, you want to kind of capture the feeling of that. And what that feels like is things are like blurring past you, and the ND filters are going to do that. The GoPro has a super easy lens that just twists on and off, and you can get ND filters and they just twist on. So on a bright sunny day, I'll use a stronger one. If it's cloudy, I might not use one at all, or if I'm going to fly till sunset, maybe I don't want one on there. But they're super easy to put on and off. And I didn't get into looking at the Insta360 or the DJI Action if they have ND filters that you can put on those, but I'm sure that they do. So I don't think that's a feature of any one camera, but speaking for the GoPro, they're pretty cheap and really easy to put on and off. And if you get a new camera, get ND filters with it. For hang gliding especially, we're generally out in bright sun. They are a huge thing for making hang gliding videos look more like what it feels like when we're flying. So please use one.